Imagine a world with no paint tubes, no art stores, no factories, no pallets with neat little labels. There was only the raw earth beneath your boots, a landscape of flora, insects, and minerals that people fought to squeeze pigment from. Blue was worth more than gold, and white, quietly deadly. In medieval Europe, color was never merely a choice. It meant status, money, faith, power, sometimes sin, sometimes death. The shade of someone's clothes told you who they were, and the color of the fabric, what a life was worth. In this video, we'll see how they actually made colors for everyday clothes, houses, books, and paintings. Why some colors were accessible for everyone, while others were only for kings, and why the act of working with color could literally kill you. From nature to canvas, the brutal origin of paint. To a medieval person, color was never ready-made. It was a long, fragile, often dangerous path. First, find the color in nature, in a root, a vein of stone, or an insect's body. Then, the painstaking process began, extracting and refining the raw material. Only then could you finally try to put it on cloth, a wall, or parchment. Every single step needed precision and experience. Too much heat, the color died instantly. One extra day of fermentation, the fabric stained. Mistakes cost you dearly, ruined material, lost time, and sometimes poisoning. So the entire world of color was split among different trades. Professional fabric dyers, master painters, manuscript illuminating monks, and builders. Each group possessed its own secret recipes and rarely, if ever, shared them. Almost no plant color lasted. It faded in the sun, washed off in the rain, bled out with every cleaning. What appeared vibrant and rich today would inevitably fade, becoming a mere pale ghost of itself within a single year. Color didn't promise to last. It lived in time, just like medieval people themselves. And yet, color made that world feel alive. It caught your eye against those gray streets. It stirred emotion. And without a single word, it told everyone who you were, how much power you had, and where you belonged. So what could actually be hiding so deep in a seemingly simple dye that people would risk their entire fortune, and even their health, just to make it? Illegal shades, the social hierarchy of color. In medieval Europe, color was a full language, one everyone understood without words. Just one look at a person's clothes told you their background, their wealth, even their reputation. Color announced who stood before you, a noble, a merchant, a monk, or a peasant. Many cities enforced strict sumptuary laws to dictate social boundaries. These regulations controlled exactly which colors each class was permitted to wear: scarlet, deep blue, and especially royal purple. These were sacred symbols of status, reserved exclusively for high-ranking nobles and the upper clergy. Break the rules, and you'd pay a fine or face public punishment. The vast majority of the population was restricted to a muted palette of dusty grays, earthy browns, and muddy greens. Even if the fabric was dyed, it faded fast. Brightness cost money, which meant you had to keep paying for it continually. Color shaped the look of cities too. House fronts were whitewashed, sometimes with a little pigment added, but rich shades were expensive and short-lived. You had to renew them constantly, so a brightly painted house immediately marked a wealthy owner, standing out against all those pale streets. But if color was that rare and expensive, where did it even come from? Especially when nature itself seems almost colorless? Rot and rituals, the dark secrets of medieval dyers. Plants were the main source of dyes, but the journey from a green leaf to dyed cloth was long and foul. For centuries, vivid blue came from the woad plant. First, you had to crush the leaves, soak them in water, and let them ferment. That created a precursor to the blue pigment, a soluble compound. Then you beat the mixture thoroughly, pressed it into balls, and dried them. But the work wasn't over. Before dyeing, you dipped the fabric into a special vat of chemical bath with an extremely strong alkali, usually ash or fermented urine. In that alkaline soup, the pigment became soluble again. And only when you pulled the fabric out into the air, oxidation that did the grayish-green hue slowly, right before your eyes, turned blue. The whole process stank of stagnant, nauseating rot, and the slightest mistake in temperature or mixture gave you nothing but a muddy, dirty mess, instead of that deep, pure blue. Red was one of the most desired colors. It came either from madder roots or from insects, kermes. You'd gather them by the thousands, dry them, and grind them into fine powder. To dye just a few yards of cloth took a staggering amount of raw material. Every rich red was literally uncompressed insect life. Yellows might seem much simpler, but don't be fooled. They came from costly saffron, rough tree bark, flowers, and even common onion skins. The brightest yellows were expensive and wildly unstable. The sun would mercilessly bleach them into pale shadows. To set the color, they used whatever worked: ash, vinegar, metal salts, and human urine. Mixtures fermented for weeks. The stench was so bad that some cities banished dyers' workshops outside the walls. Working with color was dirty, brutal, dangerous, but without it, the medieval world would have been colorless. Yet the most expensive, most desirable dyes didn't come from plants at all. They came from stone. The poisonous palette, minerals that cost lives. For painting and illuminating books, they used mineral pigments, the brightest and the most dangerous. White came from lead through a strange chemical process. You put lead plates in jars with vinegar, then buried them in manure. The intense heat and corrosive gases from the rotting dung reacted slowly with the lead, creating a thick white crust, lead carbonate. This was lead white. Red came from cinnabar, a mineral soaked in mercury. Yellows and oranges from stones laced with arsenic. They ground these by hand, hour after hour, turning rock into fine, breathable dust. Artists and monks breathed it in every day, not knowing what it was doing to them. They only saw the results: shaking hands, constant exhaustion, failing eyesight, sudden weakness, strange changes in mood. Dedicated illuminator monks spent countless years toiling in closed, stuffy scriptoriums. Their entire world shrank down to a single page of parchment, intricate gold ornaments, and piercingly bright colors. Page after page, they created radiant images, while slowly, silently destroying their own health. The color on the page looked pure, almost divine, but its true price stayed hidden. It didn't show up right away, only after years of work. And yet, among all these poisons, there was one pigment considered not just dangerous, but sacred. Sacred blue, the rarest substance on Earth. Ultramarine was the most expensive, most desired color of the Middle Ages. You couldn't find it in Europe. Lapis came from far to the east, beyond mountains and deserts. And the journey of that stone to an artist's workshop took months, sometimes years. The stone was just the beginning. To get pure blue, you crushed it, washed it, ground it again, and again separated the color from the dross. Most of the material was lost along the way. The resulting pigment was unbelievably expensive, so they used it with extreme care, almost never for minor details. Most often, ultramarine was for the robes of the Virgin Mary, in icons and altarpieces. This blue was the color of the sky, of eternity, of divine presence. In contracts between artists and patrons, ultramarine was often listed separately. The patron would pay for a specific amount of blue, and the artist was bound to use it exactly as promised. Next to ultramarine, all other blues looked dull, earthy. They reminded you that true heavenly color was only for the very few. But if the Middle Ages had such dazzling colors, why do we imagine them as so gray and grim? Ephemeral beauty, how medieval glory vanished. Most medieval colors simply didn't survive to our time. They faded in the sun, were washed away by rain, disappeared with the fabrics, the walls, the plaster. What once blinded with brilliance slowly dissolved in time. We see the past as faded not because it was gray. On the contrary, color in the Middle Ages was rare, costly, and unstable. You had to constantly renew it, maintain it, literally fight time for it, and very few could afford that fight. The medieval world was rich and starkly contrasting, but fragile. Just like the lives of the people in it, it could dazzle you, seize your imagination, and then just a few years later, vanish without a trace. And maybe that's why color meant so much back then, because it wasn't a given. It was a rare, dangerous, astonishing miracle. So, if you lived in the Middle Ages and could choose just one color, for your clothes, your house, or a painting, what would it be? Tell us in the comments. And subscribe to the channel. More fascinating history is on the way.